So, this morning I'm going to share with you news concerning world events that you may or may not be seeing on the news. But before I do that, I need to express to you that I have seen a lot of people misinterpret plain, simple scripture. And as I pointed out in the previous video, they did so using Cyril's 15th catechetical lecture rather than Paul's writings, thinking that the so-called church fathers, as they say, who came hundreds of years later and distorted the truth, superseded Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles. Now, let's go ahead and get started with not Matthew 24, Mattityahu 24. Now, why is that important? Because the name of Jehovah, or part of the name of Jehovah, is in that name. You do not carelessly throw that name around. You might want to go and look that name up and see what it means. Now, in the very second word, wrong. Not Jesus, not Jesus, but Yehoshua. From the Hebrew, Yehoshua. Why is it not pulling up? There it is. Yehoshua. It doesn't mean the Lord is salvation. It means Jehovah is salvation. All right? And any other name besides Yehoshua is false, counterfeit, and fake. Went out and departed from not the synagogue, but from the temple. And his disciples came with him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Yehoshua said unto them, Do you see all this? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Now, you historians know what this is. But the rest of you, your preachers told you a lie. Your preachers told you that another temple must be built and then that to be thrown down. Why did they do this? They did this in order to make the lie, the deceit, the twisting of scripture by Cyril in his 15th catechetical lecture, verse 12, to try to make that accurate. But it is false. So when did this situation occur? When the destruction of Jerusalem occur and the temple thereof? It was 70 AD on the Roman calendar, and for 3.5 years until they captured the citadel up on the mountain, up on the cliff, they trampled the holy city, as written in Revelation 11. They did it for 48 months. And he sat upon the Mount of Olives, and the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us when these things shall be, and what shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the world. Now, if you read Cyril's version, you will be forever confused. You will never understand until it is too late. But if you listen to the simple version, and as I explained to you, the disciples spoke Aramaic Judean language, which was a form of Hebrew, and so did Yehoshua. I proved that to you. So instead of saying, I am Christ, they would be saying, I am Moshiach. Well, there were several, and one of them was named after, one of the revolts was named after one of those who claimed he was the Moshiach. That was the Bar Kokhba revolt. But you wouldn't know that, Christian, because you don't study. And that was the one that Hadrian, in 135 AD, I believe it was, put down. For many shall come, saying, I am Moshiach, not Christ. And they shall deceive many. Many of who? Many of the Jews. Now, this is the one that I keep seeing right here. And you Christians keep attributing the wars that are about to take place right now, and one in Ukraine, and the war between Israel and Gaza, and next is going to be the war between Israel and Hezbollah, and also next is going to be the war between Russia and the Baltic states. The Baltic states. Okay? But you will attribute that to, and you shall hear of wars, of rumors and wars. But you never read what comes right after that. See that you not be troubled, for all of these things shall come to pass, but the end is not yet. The end of what? The end of the world. He was speaking of the wars and rumors of wars being the Romans and their invasions. And their invasion of the Holy Land. But the end is not anywhere even close. And he goes on, if you read carefully, he says, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in different places. But you Christians refuse to read verse 8. And this is just the beginning. It hasn't hardly even started yet. What he was speaking of in those days. There has been thousands, there has been nearly 2,000 years of this. Nation rising against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and famines and pestilence and earthquakes in different places. There's been nearly 2,000 years of this. History books will show you that that is true. And then, what? And at that time, at what time? At this time. At this time, they're going to deliver the disciples up to be afflicted and killed. So this, in time frame right here, is the same time frame that the disciples were killed. And how long did it take after the disciples were killed before the destruction of Jerusalem? You see, it was in the same time frame. It was only a few years. Okay? Because you shall be hated of all the what? Of all the Gentiles for my name's sake. So much so, they hated the name Cephas, Shimon Cephas, so badly that they changed it to Peter because they hated that Hebrew name. And then many false prophets shall arise. Okay? It says, many shall be offended, shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. Well, this occurred in the siege at Jerusalem, but it also occurred afterwards. And many false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many. Well, this has been going on for the last nearly 2,000 years among the Gentiles. So he's talking about many shall say coming, I am Moshiach, and shall deceive many. That is among the people of Israel, of the Jews. But these false prophets are among the Gentiles, as you read about the false prophet in the book of Revelation, the beast and the false prophet. And because iniquity shall increase, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that endures to the end, the same shall be saved. So now we're talking about all the way to the very end again. See, stop trying to outsmart yourself reading these scriptures. He explains it thoroughly here. And this message of the kingdom shall be preached into all the world for the kingdom unto the Gentiles. Right here. And then the end shall come. So he is giving privately to the disciples the timeline and summaries. So we have, again, a timeline of the destruction of the temple right here. Right here. Now, when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place. Did it happen? Yes, it did. This occurred, and you can do your research or you can search through my nearly 800 videos to find the videos that show that Caligula was the man described who did this. Caligula, what did Caligula do? Well, Caligula became sick. And when he recovered, he became insane. It was at that point in time when the devil entered into his mind and his body. You can go look it up. He went absolutely crazy. So what he did was he claimed that he himself, as Zeus/Jupiter, was a god. And he had graven images of himself as Zeus, aka Jupiter, put in the synagogues of all the synagogues in the in the temples of his whole realm, including the temple in Jerusalem. And the Jews, that started the beginnings of the Jewish revolt against the Romans. This is what Paul was talking about in Thessalonians, the man of sin. In the holy place, who reads, let him understand. You have world history at your fingertips. It is inexcusable at this point in time for you to not know this. So when this occurs, at that time, let them which are in Judea flee into the mountains. Where are the mountains? Mountains are in the south. Because if you waited until the armies were gathering around Jerusalem, it was already too late. And you will read in Luke where it says Them which are in Jerusalem, when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then you know its desolation is nigh. And what Luke forgot to insert here is when you see the abomination of desolation standing in the holy place, then them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. That was not inserted here, and it should have been, but it's inserted here. When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. So the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel prophet was the graven image of Caligula as Zeus, aka Jupiter, placed in the temple. When you see that, it was time to run south for your life, because in just a few years later, here comes Vespasian and Titus to destroy Jerusalem. Then let them which be in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Don't lollygag around. Get out. Neither let them which was in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them with child, to them that give suck in those days. Now you might say, well, he is talking like it was when the armies was coming. It's not what he says here. He says, when you see the abomination of because if you wait until Titus places the abomination of desolation on the corner of the temple, which he did, it was too late. This is why you need to study history. Because Jerusalem was destroyed already, and most of the people were dead when Titus put the abomination of desolation at the corner, at the wing of the destroyed temple. Oh, it's all in history. You can Google it. You can be naysayers if you want to, but that does not change the facts. For then shall be great tribulation. On who? On the Jews. In a manner not since the beginning of the world to this time, no ever shall be. So, the tribulation that is upon Israel, that occurred upon Israel, and that continued until the time of the Gentiles comes to the end, I will get to that, is the worst that has ever happened, and it shall never happen to Israel again. And yet you Christians, you claim that this coming tribulation will be a tribulation upon Israel. You are calling the Moshiach a liar. And except those days be curtailed, there shall no flesh be saved. Except these days be curtailed, there shall no flesh be saved. That means everybody on the earth will be destroyed. So that means that this particular tribulation that began with the destruction of Jerusalem and continued for nearly 2,000 years, if those days are not curtailed, there would be nobody left alive on the face of the earth. Why? Why? Let's get started. Chilling NATO directive to alliance defense members. This is on warnews247.gr. Use your Google Translate. War with Russia inevitable. All Western peoples are told to prepare. You see, folks? I told you so. And I'll show you on BitChute where I told you so. The head of NATO Military Commission, Admiral Rod Bauer, gave a chilling directive for humanity after a meeting with the defense ministers of the alliance countries in Brussels. The Western world must be prepared for a total war with Russia, said Rod Bauer. NATO now considers that total war with Russia is coming after the apparent collapse of the Ukrainian army. I'm not going to read this whole thing through because I have got a lot to go through. I've got 2 YouTube videos that I have to go entirely through. So please be patient. So now for the next one. Bloomberg. Putin is able to break the unity of Western countries in 2024. Huh? So everybody's pointing to 2024. While Germany was trying to say in one side of their mouth, it will take 5 years, and then the real truth got exposed in the next video. After a year of conflict, it initially seemed that Russia would turn into a weakened and humiliated nation, but now we are entering into the 3rd year of military activity, and Putin once again has the opportunity to break the unity of the West, Bloomberg reported. Let's go to this video I was talking about. Two videos.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the Military Committee Chiefs of Defense session has just drawn to a close. We will start off this press conference with an opening statement.
We today announce the kickoff of Exercise Steadfast Defender 2024, which commences next week and runs through May. Steadfast Defender 24 will be the largest NATO exercise in decades, with participation from approximately 90,000 forces from all 31 allies, plus our good partner Sweden. The alliance will demonstrate its ability to reinforce the Euro-Atlantic area via transatlantic movement of forces from North America. This reinforcement will occur during a simulated emerging conflict scenario against a near-peer adversary. Steadfast Defender 24 will be a clear demonstration of our unity, our strength, and our determination to protect each other, to protect, of course, our values and the rules-based international order.
Industrial base that is able to produce weapons and ammunition fast enough. Sorry, the big difference with a year ago, I would say, Terry, is that there's a lot of things that have happened in the armed forces and in the defense organizations. What hasn't happened is in our societies the understanding that it is more than the military that has to be able to operate in a conflict or in a war. It is the whole of society that will get involved, whether we like it or not.
Oh, the whole of society must get involved in these wars. Prepare young men to be drafted and recruited. This is what he is saying. Now, I want you to look at the title of this video, NATO warns of all-out war with Russia in the next 20 years. It's not in the next 20 years, but in the next video, you will see how the Germans accidentally leaked some information that says 2024. But I will continue with this video.
Not. That realization, we didn't talk about that much a year ago. If you look back the last year, what has happened in our alliance with regard to the battle groups that we set up, if you look back to the training, the fact that we now have Steadfast Defender with 90,000 troops, that is a record number. That is a record number of troops that we can bring to bear and have an exercise with in that size. Across the alliance, across the ocean, from the US to Europe, in Europe. That is a big change.
AFP and then at the back.
Thanks a lot. I guess for Admiral Bauer, for General Cavoli.
People find it a surprise and as a result buy a radio on batteries, that is great. It is part of the package that the Swedish government is talking about. You need to have water, you need to have a radio on batteries, and you need to have a flashlight on.
Is that it? You think that a little bit of water, a radio, and batteries is going to be enough? Are you guys out of your minds?
Batteries to make sure that you can survive the first 36 hours. Things like that. That's simple things. But it starts there. The realization that not everything is plannable, not everything is going to be honky-dory in the next 20 years. I'm not saying it is going wrong tomorrow, but we have to realize it's not a given that we are in peace.
Wow. You guys are doing a really good job of keeping the people asleep. But let us go to the leak from Gravitas TV.
Because just look where Iraqi Kurdistan is located. Just south of the Caucasus. Ukraine is just northwest of Crimea and Caucasus, and even though the conflict in West Asia has taken attention away from Russia's war in Ukraine, the Kremlin is focused on drawing out Western capabilities in Ukraine for as long as possible. Naturally, the West is worried. They believe that the Russian President Vladimir Putin will do what they fear the most, and that's attack NATO. For them, the worst case scenario is a Russian attack when they are unprepared. And so the NATO is preparing for the worst. Leaked documents from the German Defense Ministry reveal the secret war plans of the US-led bloc. They outline a step-by-step doomsday guide, a guide on how Russia could escalate the conflict in Ukraine to an even bigger battle in Europe. The leaked documents have been published by a German newspaper. They reveal a path to a third world war between NATO and Russia. The outlet, in fact, claims that Russia could expand the Ukraine war by attacking the NATO ally countries one by one next year. It comes as the ongoing conflict nears its 2-year mark. The report claims that armed forces in Europe are preparing for an attack by Russia on the NATO's eastern flank. This, they say, could include a cyber offensive. The leaked German document is called Alliance Defense 2025, and it details just how Russia would mobilize its soldiers. Germany is reportedly taking the threat seriously. It is preparing for a hybrid Russian attack on the NATO's eastern flank by the summer of 2025. The secret document says Moscow would mobilize 200,000 soldiers before launching a spring offensive against the Ukrainian forces in spring this year. It notes that currently the Kremlin does not have the ability. But if the NATO fails in helping Ukraine, then that could change. It is in fact a very real possibility. The report outlines that by June later this year, amid dwindling Western support for Ukraine, Russia would achieve success on the battlefield and make big advances. And Moscow will succeed, it is assumed. Taking advantage of this success, Putin would then launch cyber attacks in the Baltics. Fears of a Baltic invasion, in fact, have risen since the Ukraine war started. Though thousands of NATO troops, including British soldiers, are currently deployed to the Baltics, they are only intended as a tripwire force. It means that their role is to hold up any invading force until the main NATO army can arrive. And at the same time, he would incite violence in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania by claiming that ethnic Russian minorities are being targeted, and as a result, clashes would occur. And then Putin would use this as an excuse to launch a large-scale exercise. And by September, Putin would send 50,000 of his troops to Russia-friendly country Belarus, and a month later, he will go a step further. He will move troops and medium-range missiles to the Russian enclave of Kaliningrad. The region is nestled between Poland and Lithuania. At the same time, Putin would continue provocations and claim that the NATO is preparing to attack Russia. The leaked document further states that Moscow would take advantage of the chaos that will ensue if President Joe Biden is defeated in the presidential elections.
You hear that? Did you hear that? Let's listen to that again.
In the presidential elections.
Hold on.
And claim that the NATO is preparing to attack Russia. The leaked document further states that Moscow would take advantage of the chaos that will ensue if President Joe Biden is defeated in the presidential election.
Yes. If Joe Biden is defeated in the presidential elections, this German leak says that Russia would take full advantage. Of course they would.
It would leave the US without a leader for a few weeks.
Exactly. Can you see the handwriting on the wall? Let's continue.
And that is when Putin would begin his attack on NATO soil.
What? Did you hear that? And that is when Putin would begin his attack on NATO soil. What NATO soil? Well, it would be the Baltics. Latvia, Lithuania, and the others up there.
According to this doomsday scenario, the NATO would convene a special meeting in January 2025.
Look, they already have dates. Do you hear this? You might want to go ahead and write these dates down, folks.
Poland, as well as other Baltic states, would report an increasing Russian threat and plead for help. But that would not work to deter Russia, because according to this scenario, by March 2025, the Kremlin would move even more troops towards the Baltics and Belarus. By the end of the month, Putin would have 70,000 soldiers. According to the leaked documents, on an undisclosed date named Day X, NATO would deploy 300,000 soldiers, including 30,000 from Germany, to its eastern flank. It would be to defend against an impending Russian attack. It's unclear from the documents if Russia would be deterred by the deployment of NATO forces. It is because this scenario ends 30 days after Day X. This, you see, was the NATO's worst case scenario.
It's going to be a worst case scenario, folks. It's probably going to be even worse than the worst case scenario. And as I have pointed out to you over and over and over again, they are talking about the presidential election in the United States. How Russia would take full advantage and invade the Baltics at that particular point in time. Now, let us check presidential election, date of presidential election. I don't know why they just don't give me a date. I want to have an exact date because I like to deal in exacts and not, let's see here. Not presidential results, folks. November 5th, 2024. Do you know what date? So she said 3 weeks with no, I don't know, maybe they're trying to figure out who the president is and then at 3 weeks after that. That's probably what she's talking about. Now, here's what we do. November the 5th, 2024. Now we go to and let's see what we can find. December 25th. Well, how do you like that? So Hanukkah 2024, it is on the same day that the Christians celebrate Christmas? While they are singing peace and goodwill towards men, Haggai says this, as I have pointed out to you hundreds of times on these videos. To Strong's Concordance, always use Strong's Concordance, folks. Otherwise, King James Version will keep you in the dark. 18 through 24. Not consider, but set. Set. This day and upward and forward. Set it above. Make it exceedingly great and forward. All right, just so you know what it's saying. It is very, very, very important day. From the 4 and 20th day of the 9th month, the day that the foundation of not the Lord's temple, but Jehovah's temple was laid. What day was it? Well, the Jews know. Why don't you? Hanukkah. That's the day. What's so special about that day? It says, on that day will he bless Israel. And again, the word of not the Lord, but Jehovah, see that? Came unto Haggai, I should say. Haggai, I just learned something. In the 4 and 20th day of the month, that the same day of the same month, saying, because they were rebuilding the temple, the second temple. Herod built the third temple. Governor of Yehuda saying, I will shake the heavens and the earth, and I will overthrow the throne of the kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the Gentiles, of the Goy, Gentiles. And I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the Gentiles, and I will overthrow their Merkava, their tanks. See? Their tanks. Even Israel names their tanks Merkava. Okay? But that's the tanks of the Gentiles. And I will destroy the strength in the kingdoms of the heathen, to overthrow their Merkava and those that ride in them. And the Sus, their war birds, shall all come down, and their riders with them, every one by the sword of his brother. World War III. Gentile versus Gentile. Ukrainians versus Russians. All of Europe will have to pick a side. The sons of Japheth will be at a war with each other. And in that day, what day? The day that the foundation of Jehovah's temple was laid. The 24th day of the 9th month. Hanukkah. December 25th on the Roman calendar this year. They are suggesting that that's when this occurs. It is the news reports telling you this. Because you see, Election Day, November the 5th. You know as well as I do that there is going to be utter chaos in this election year. Look, folks, if you can't see the handwriting on the wall, wouldn't you just know it? It'll be Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. And the powers that be in Washington, they do not want Donald Trump. And Donald Trump will try to appease Russia. In their minds, they believe that. Do I have a dog in this fight? No, I do not. In that day, says Jehovah of hosts, Zerubbabel becomes the sign, the seal, signet ring, the sign. And because he has chosen, and it be chosen. So, he is a signet ring, he's a sign, and he will choose. He's the chosen. Why is he chosen? Because his name means begotten in Babylon. Come out of her, my people, Israel, and be not partakers in her sins. Old Babylon, Rome, Western civilization, the three Romes. Yes, there is a third Rome. Go look, go Google it. Third Rome, you'll see it. I don't have to show it to you. The first one is over there in Italy. The second one is Constantinople. And Google the third Rome and you know what it is. Come out of Babylon. The three Romes. Escape. That is the time to escape. Now, I'm not the one that's saying that it's 2024. It's not me. No. Nope. Do not misinterpret what I'm telling you. All I'm telling you is look at what they are saying. And look how close the timeline is to Hanukkah. And wouldn't it be so interesting that on the day that the Westerners proclaim peace and goodwill to all men, that is the day. We'll go to while they are saying. I'm getting spotty internet connection right now, so please bear with me. I don't know how I'm going to get this uploaded, but we'll see. But the seasons, the times and the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I should write to you, for you yourselves know perfectly that the day of not the Lord, but Jehovah, so comes as a thief in the night. And why should it come as a thief in the night if we're getting warnings right and left on the news media? Not the mainstream news media, by the way, but news media that I'm showing you right now. For when they shall say peace and safety. Now, watch this. To all mankind, and there you have it, folks. Christmas. Peace on earth and goodwill to all men. And the Christmas keepers are liars. While they are saying peace, then, and safety, then sudden destruction shall come upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But you should not be in darkness. You should know, you should see it coming. You should not be in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief, because you're supposed to be the children of light. Then how is it that so many, the vast majority of the populations in Western civilization cannot see it coming? They don't even know what to do. How is this even possible? Now, I guess I have to do another video and point out I saw I guess I missed it. I don't know what happened to it. Maybe I should look in. NATO prepares all out war with Russia. But while all this is going on, yesterday, Israel launched an attack on Iranian officials in Damascus, Syria, and also attempted to assassinate Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon. This war in Lebanon is going to be next. And Yoel 3 must happen. Yoel 3 must happen while all of this is going on. Otherwise, those days will not be curtailed, and there would be no flesh saved alive on the earth today. So while this is going on, war will break out in the Middle East as well, and it will force the hand of Gog and Magog, whomever they are. And as I have pointed out in BitChute, right here, in this particular video, Ribbon of St. George identifies Gog and the perpetrator of the sixth trumpet plague. So it's on either BitChute or YouTube. You can go into YouTube or BitChute and type in those words, and you will find it. I have proof that the Ribbon of St. George identifies Gog and the perpetrator of the sixth trumpet plague. What is the sixth trumpet plague? It is essentially a nuclear war and 1/3 of mankind being killed. And here, the colors. If you look at the YARS ICBM launchers accurately described in the 3 woes. Google or search for that video. Type it in BitChute or in YouTube. It doesn't matter. But in those videos, I describe in-depth proof that it's the YARS ICBM launchers, because the colors of the Ribbon of St. George is on those launchers. And it is described, the colors are described in great detail in the book of Revelation. I believe it's chapter 18, verses 17 through 18. I go in depth on this, okay? And this was April. I did these videos April last year. And this one I did in March, and I did another one in February, I believe it was, okay? Look, I put all this information out here for you. But if this was allowed to go unabated without Yoel 3 taking place and them diverting attention from destroying each other to try to get Israel up and out of the Golan Heights and out of Gaza and out of Lebanon, if that situation didn't occur, nukes would be launched, the whole world would be destroyed even before Yoel 3 would take place. So Yoel 3 must take place at around the same time. So watch the events that I pointed out to you today, and then be with one eye, And then with the other eye, watch out what's going on in the Middle East. It'll happen at the same time. It's happening right now at the same time. All right? Pay attention. Get yourself ready. You better have more than batteries and a little bit of water ready.